moving in, clean the property, do an inventory. There's lots of software available. We use Inventory Base. It's quite a big system, but it's cheap for what it can do, I would say. And you can set your inventory template up, so you label all the rooms and take the pictures. But that's really important because it saves time. So you might do an inventory on day one when they move in, and 6 months' time you want to do another one. Just use the same template, take some more photos, and you've got the different photos. Then they move out, so you're not setting up templates all the time. So Inventory Base is a great bit of software. And move-in checklist, as I said before, make sure that these things have happened. I'm going to canter through these, to be honest. So as landlords, you're responsible for a lot of stuff. Maintaining the installation of all these things, habitability, keep it habitable throughout the tenancy, property maintenance, furniture and appliances, safety measures, so with smoke alarms, again, we talked about that before. Licensing, you might need a license if it's HMO over 5 rooms, you will. There might be selective licensing or in your area, and communication. So because of all those things, how do you make sure that you do all of those things? What is your process and system and checklist for doing all those things? So we say inspect in the first 3 months. If your tenant is not going to look after your property, you ought to know quickly. So inspect in the first 3 months and then every 6 months after. You might, if it's clearly a tenancy that's working well, every 6 months you might want to extend that. But don't forget about it and do go back. I think you hear a lot of this thing. Sometimes we hear tenants will trash my house or something. While you can't stop that happening, you can keep your eyes and ears on your property by doing inspections. We have an inspection schedule, so we know what property was inspected last, and we know the frequency, i.e. 6 months, so we know it's going to happen next time. The date, and was it done, was the inspection sent? So all of these things, once you do one, that's great, but then you've got to send it to the landlord, and all the maintenance that comes out of that, you've got to make sure it's on the maintenance log, etc. So there are things that happen as a result of an inspection that need to make sure. And this is a bit about the inspection system. So record the request. It might come in telephone, WhatsApp, or an inspection. So it comes in from a lot of different places, but record that somewhere, and documenting when it comes to maintenance is really important to prove that you've done what you said you'd do, I guess, and you're taking the request seriously. Clarify it and request photos. So my boiler doesn't work. It's a great one. There might be 100 reasons why your boiler doesn't work. The thermostat might have been turned off, or might have been turned down, or something. The pressure might have gone. So there's quite a lot of things you can diagnose rather than getting your plumber out straight away. So what is a system for asking those questions and making sure you're not going to whack a plumber out because they've turned the heating down, for example. Deciding a course of action. In our world, that's ask the landlord if necessary, and record what you've done. Instruct the contractor, get a date. So you might instruct the contractor, and then they might not go. So how do you, and they might have told you what the date they're going. So how do you know they've gone? And you've just got to, in our world, chase everything through to make sure that what you've asked for actually happens. So check the job has been done, pay the invoice. So our maintenance log at the moment, I think it's about 67, which is pretty low at the moment, to be fair, but we know the status of each one. Some landlords have been asked, some landlords have said, get some more information, some contractors have been instructed, etc. I'm assuming everyone here is intending to look after their properties and their tenants, but if you don't adhere to housing health and safety rating system, there are actions that are consequences. So that council can take enforcement action against you. You can't serve a Section 21, and you might ask to give back compensation. So keeping on top of your maintenance requests and not forgetting them is quite important. Load of certificates. So certificate management in property maintenance is a big thing. These are the certificates that every house or property has to have, and these are the extra ones. There could be more in some instances that HMOs have to have. So we manage half our portfolio HMOs. So you count up all these certificates times by 120 houses times by a load. It's about 600 certificates every year that we have to make sure that we've got right. So having a system to make sure we know where they are is quite important. So it's reviewed weekly. We get reminders, and even filing systems is really important. So did your gas come in on an email that you can't find because you're not quite sure which plumber did it, or have you filed your certificate with a property name, the type of certificate, and the expiry date, and you know where it's filed. So there's a few things there. I'll count through the rest of the slides. Has your tenant paid a rent on time? You have a system for that. Increasing the rent. can be by written agreement. Again, in rent review tracker, we've got one of those where we know the last time we reviewed the rent if a tenant's out of contract. Because a landlord gave us a property about 6 months ago, rent was 495, agent hadn't put it up for God knows how long, we're marketing, we asked for 950, tenant didn't want to pay it, moved out, fair enough, we're going to advertise it at 1100 quid, that's the market rate. He was missing out on that much rent because he didn't have a system to increase his rent, which he should have done. So it was his fault ultimately. The agent was probably responsible in some shape or form, but it's a landlord's house. This is a bit about giving notices. Don't get it wrong, it's a system to follow. We can go up to Section 21 stage. We outsource it if it goes beyond that because it's a specialist area. We don't do it every day and getting it wrong can be quite expensive. If tenants give notice, it could be by mutual agreement. You can agree that they leave. That's fine, or you might ask them to find a suitable replacement. Return deposit, do it quickly, ultimately, and do it fairly. You can deduct costs for cleaning, damaged or missing items, but return it as soon as possible. There's no date, but once it has been agreed, I think the clock starts ticking after that point. Again, another landlord put a DPS claim in, didn't submit the right information, so didn't get anything. The truth was, he probably was due some money back, but he didn't submit the right documentation. So there's lots of steps in property management. That's a canter through some of them. Nothing is complicated ultimately, but the volume can create complexity. So lots of information coming to you from lots of different sources can create complexity, and missing steps can be costly. So my takeaway is have a system, have a checklist. And we've documented some of our systems and checklists in this book here. So you're more than welcome to take a copy, have a quick read, but the Property Investment and Management Guidebook. So that's for you to take home. There we go. Thanks very much indeed.